That's good. So it's possible for us to get to that point.
Yes, it is.
How
By
about
God's grace.
by God's grace. How about now moving from that, Pastor Mbewe? You took us to an example of an excellent woman in Ruth. You took us through Ruth chapter 3, and we actually saw it from both Ruth and Boaz. Mentioned that both were excellent. But there's also a unique relationship between Naomi and Ruth, which was great to see in the passage. What are some of the lessons women can draw from that in terms of mentorship relationships? That was one of the topics of the breakout sessions at the rally. How can we see what Ruth and Naomi, the relationship between Ruth and Naomi, and draw some lessons from there in terms of mentorship?
Yeah, it's a good question. The relationship of Ruth and Naomi is one that it's almost difficult to even call it a mentorship relationship. That's not what they went into it thinking. So Ruth wasn't looking for a mentor. In Naomi, nor was Naomi looking for someone to mentor. But as we read the story, it becomes clear that Naomi is playing a mentorship role, and she's guiding Ruth in terms of her relationship with Boaz, telling her where it's safe for her to go and work, and Ruth is submitting to her guidance. I think what we can pick up in terms of mentorship is that we need to get past thinking that mentorship must always be formal, or that it must primarily be formal. So when we think of mentorship, we tend to think about a weekly coffee date, and then you meet someone and you're discussing a book, or just catching up on life and hearing what they're going through and advising them, when really that's valid, but it's really a very minor component of the big picture of mentorship. And the big picture of mentorship is what we see in Naomi and Ruth, that it's life upon life. It's bringing someone into your space. And that's what I would really commend to women, that yes, there's room for the coffee dates and all those things. That's fine, reading a book together. But what works even better and what is far more effective is when you bring someone into your life. So you let them, bring them into your life in your normal, in the normal things you do, whether you're going shopping, whether you're doing cooking at home and preparing for the family, whether you're serving at church. So you've got a responsibility to be at church at a certain time. You tell this person, let me pick you up at whatever time, so that we come. And as you are serving together and working together, opportunities to speak into someone's life come up. And it's far more effective in just bringing out the real issues someone is experiencing than the formal thing, because a real bond and friendship begins to develop. And so I'd encourage people to think more in terms of even just the mother-daughter relationship of Ruth and Naomi. Think of how you can bring in daughters into your life. And think of how you can even, and we overthink it, think of how you can bring in sisters. So it might be a peer woman who you've thought of or identified, and you bring her in as a sister and as a friend, and you bring her into the normal cycle of your life, and they see you, just living your life, and you interact in that setting. You could even bring in a mother. Let's say someone becomes a Christian, but they're much older than you. Perhaps they're at mother level in terms of the age gap. You can actually mentor them in that kind of a relationship. And I remember hearing it, it was a drama play, but there was someone who was married. She was a much younger lady, and an older lady. And the older lady heard the young woman speak to her husband and reveal something that was a little embarrassing and unnecessary to reveal. And so the older woman was like, what, you say that to your husband? And she said, oh, yeah. I share everything. What? You share everything? Isn't that a problem? So, and right there, mentorship happens. And she even says, oh, that's I would love that. That's the older woman speaking. I would love that for my marriage. And so mentorship happens in that setting. And the advantage is with the less formal approach is, as I've said, someone opens up, and so you're able to really speak to the real issues they are facing. But that's what also helps mentorship be more common. When we think primarily of mentorship as the formal meetings, that's why we see very little mentorship. Because that kind of formal setup is taxing and feels burdensome. But it's a lot easier to bring someone into your space and just, bring them along as you live your life. You're babysitting the kids, you invite them over, you do it together and stuff like that.
But they also tend to see your strengths and weaknesses.
Oh, yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
So you get to do life together.
That's it.
I actually had that in mind, that when it's the formal setting where it's just a book, you really look like a god,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Being.
Because you're just answering the theoretical questions and the theological questions. But when someone sees you in even your struggle, that really makes them say, oh, this person I really look up to, like you are saying, is human.
Human.
And that means me being human is not such a bad thing,
Yes.
And that means that possibly I can also rise to that level.